What is up, beautiful peach? Today we are going to be talking about common food behaviors that are actually toxic. And what I want you to do and what I want your takeaways to be out of this episode is to kind of start to think if any of these food behaviors you have ever either maybe done yourself, maybe experienced, maybe have like seen it happening in your family in the conversations around the holidays or when you're out to eat. These are things in the past that I personally sometimes would do myself, and now being on the other side, being in a space where I feel I've really healed my relationship with food to where I actually have not thought about these behaviors until more recently when I think it was around Thanksgiving. One of these behaviors popped up in a family situation, a family friend, etc. And so I was like, oh, so interesting. And I started to think about it, and I was like, oh my goodness, these are some very common food behaviors that I see in the world a lot more than I realized. And I think something here is just because a food habit seems normal doesn't actually mean that it's healthy, and doesn't actually mean that it's something that we want to be thinking about often, okay? Many of us have grown up in a environment where we have toxic behaviors all around us, whether that is our parents, whether that's our grandparents, whether that's, family friends, whether that's aunt and uncles, whoever it may be. And just because somebody else has a food pattern, a food behavior that may not be the most healthy, it doesn't mean we love them any less. I think I think a lot of times we hold guilt and we're like, oh, that's such a terrible, pattern. My mom or my dad or my grandma, whoever it might be, like I remember them wanting to do a diet together when I was 10 years old. And I've had clients who kind of felt some resentment, and they're like, oh, it makes me mad. But I think what's important to note is they probably had no idea, what they were, what diet mentalities they were creating in you. They had no idea. They were just doing their best. And so what I like to kind of think is the saying that I have been saying so much more often, but our parents' ceiling is our floor, okay? So what they know, what they were doing their best, that ceiling that they had is now going to be our floor. And we have the opportunity to put the work in ourselves and to really, really create this new ceiling for ourselves that is absolutely amazing. And so, our children or those around us can then have that ceiling, can have that higher capacity for growth and having this overall less toxic mentality, specifically around food, if you want to think about that. So let's dive into these common food behaviors that are actually quite toxic. I am going to actually read some of this directly from my notes, which is very rare for me, because I have very specifics here. So number one, comparing your plate to others, okay? So the toxic pattern here is you feel guilty if your plate has more food than somebody else's, or if you go back for seconds, okay? Alternatively, you might judge somebody else's plate, some other plate, to make yourself feel better about your own food choices. So for example, over Thanksgiving, one of my family friends who's just been there my whole entire life made a comment. So we had all kinds of fun foods, the sweet potatoes, we had green bean casserole, which I am, and stuffing. Like I'm particular when it comes about to my like Thanksgiving food. My parents, so my mom's side does like a rice stuffing, and then my father-in-law makes like a kick butt bread stuffing, and I've converted to like a bread stuffing gal. It is so good. But anyway, this family friend was talking about, going on and on and on during this Thanksgiving dinner about how she shouldn't be eating this, how she shouldn't be eating that, how it's just this one scenario. And I love her so dearly, like such a good family friend. But it hit the point where I didn't say anything this whole entire time, but I was like, oh my goodness, like nobody wants to hear that right now. Like nobody wants to hear any of that, but you could see the guilt coming into play and that she was experiencing. And so it's harmful because there were children at the table, but they're like babies. But the idea here is if you are old enough and you have children who are hearing those things, or even us as adults that are hearing those things, we become the people that we are around, and we start to adopt those behaviors. We start to adopt that mentality. So that mentality is then overflowing into the people around us. And I'm lucky because I have done so much work in my relationship with food that I see that, and I immediately see her own guilt coming into play, and she's trying to verbally process and verbally validate herself, and also get external validation that it's okay to eat the sweet potatoes, that it's okay to eat the bread stuffing, that it's okay to eat, the pumpkin pie, that it's okay to eat these things, okay? So it's a very, very, very big comparison trap here, okay? I have an added thought here. I said, have you ever looked around the table at a dinner party and thought, am I eating too much? And you start to have this, oh my gosh, this person is eating, less than I am. I should be eating less. Here's the honest fact about this is everybody is going to be so incredibly different with the food that they need. You have a unique body just like everybody else in the entire world, okay? So comparing your plate to somebody else's really, really, really doesn't make sense, because you likely eat very different amounts of food, okay? A healthier mindset, instead of comparing and focusing on other people's, is actually tuning into your body, your needs, and thinking through what you need. Are you still hungry? Like, okay, great, you have fit in, whatever it may be. Like, are you still, get that food for you? Don't think about what other people are eating, okay? Number 2, assessing the room to see who is the smallest in the room. So this is, or even, okay, so I've got 2 different thoughts here. So you're looking around the room, you're comparing who's the smallest here, who's the smallest here. And this is reinforcing the toxic association between body size and worth, okay? I will fully admit, I have never looked at a family member, a friend, literally anybody, and defined their worth based on the way that they look. I know there are some people out there in the world who do, and I am not a fan of the people who will rip somebody else apart. I don't like that. I don't think it's cool. And the thing is, they have learned this from somebody else. I also have people in my world who I have seen who have done this. And they aren't close people, but I have seen it, and it's sad because now their children have grown up in that same mindset, okay? The added thought here is, this is a behavior that is very much rooted in the our culture, our culture as a whole, the glorification of being as tiny as you possibly can. And that is what the diet industry is all about. And it's very, very toxic, but it is ingrained in generations and generations and generations of women, but also men as well, okay? The healthier mindset that I encourage you to have is, instead of sizing up the room, remind yourself that health isn't a size, and your value isn't determined by the number on the scale or the food on your plate, and really, really start to work on, instead of assessing people in the room based on their size, look around and think who you love, who you get to hang out with, and little happy thoughts there, okay? A third one is skipping meals before holiday gatherings. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm saving up all my calories this week. I'm eating such low calorie this week in order to, have the Thanksgiving meal, to have, whatever it may be. And the harmful part about this is it's creating those restrict and those binge cycles. So when it comes to that Thanksgiving meal, I'm not sure why I'm picking Thanksgiving. I think because I had that initial example at the beginning there, but it's going to, when we're restricting our food, it's messing with our hunger cues. Eventually, it's going to have our brain triggering a binge. We are not feeling good. It's going to mess with our energy. It's going to mess with all of these different things. And it's actually making your body have a harder time listening to those signals, and you're dysregulating your body, okay? So it is one of those things where I know that the diet mentality makes us think that we shouldn't be eating certain things. So my encouragement here for you is to actually track your macros. This is something that for all of my clients going through the holidays, literally all of them have been thriving. They're coming back out of the holidays feeling so good, going into the new year. We're now in this new year and they're just feeling amazing. They're all eating 500, 900, so many more calories in their reverse diet. They're losing weight, they're feeling good, and they're really, breaking up with this toxic diet mentality, okay? Four here is saying I shouldn't eat this. Kind of actually, this goes in with the first one that I was talking about. Was that the first one? Kind of, I think so. But looking for validation from external, from other people, right? So the sweet potatoes, I really, really shouldn't eat this, but like just this one time, and you're hoping that everybody else is going to give you that validation of, yeah, like go for it, you're fine. And it's really one of those things where it is, it's enforcing that food should or should not be eaten, which then is creating food guilt. So when you are feeling or saying, I really shouldn't be eating this, it usually means that you do have the good food, bad food diet mentality. And it's something that you get to work on, okay? If it is helpful for you to, and for me, this is what really truly like changed. I say this all the time, but like tracking macros changed my overall perception of food. And I don't look at food as good food or bad food. I think more nutrient dense versus less nutrient dense. And there's nothing wrong with the foods that are less nutrient dense. It just means that you can follow the 80-20 rule, right? And fit 80% of the food in your macros with those nutrient dense foods. And then the 20% can be fit, the fun things, the less nutrient dense things. I just bought Lesser Evil popcorn is my like all-time favorite popcorn. It is so good. It's the Himalayan salt that I like, but they have, I don't know what they're called. I have like a massive bag from Costco. I just discovered that they had these, but they are basically like Cheetos, and they're I think they're called like cheesy puffs, maybe cheesy puffs. They're so good. They are so freaking good. I've been having some literally every single day, and you know what? I am loving it. I still have my chocolate before bed. I still have chocolate throughout the day. It's a matter of catering to your macros, but making sure you're doing it sustainably. So you're giving yourself permission to eat the food that you want without the justification or the need for validation from others, okay? Food doesn't have a moral value, okay? It doesn't have a moral value. And we're gonna leave it at that. Okay, tracking your macros and really, really supporting fitting in those fun foods is going to really help you heal that relationship with food, okay? Trying to burn it off later, okay? So you mentally are planning a longer workout or extra cardio sessions in order to make up for something that you have consumed. There are a lot of challenges that start if you listen to my past 2 episodes. If you have not listened to them, I highly, highly, highly recommend listening to them. I cannot think of the number off the top of my head, but 2 episodes ago, I start talking about self-sabotage. Listen to that one first and then move into the most recent one behind this current episode, where I talk about self-sabotage and perfectionism. Incredibly impactful, okay? Incredibly impactful. Now, when we are thinking that we need to make up for eating certain things, sound very Southern there, for eating certain foods, it is creating the idea again that we should not be eating a certain number of foods or certain kinds of foods, okay? So it's it's harmful because it's turning food into something that you have to earn or that you have to punish yourself for. So instead of something that brings you joy for eating, okay, it brings me joy to eat those cheesy puffs. It brings me joy, so much joy, okay? And also, I am nourishing my body when I'm eating these nutrient-dense foods, when I'm filling my body with these nutrient-dense foods. So you can look, and honestly, it brings me joy too. I freaking love nachos. I can't remember if it was this episode or the last episode. I'm recording a couple episodes right now because I'm going to Hawaii next week, which is fun. But I have been like on a nacho kick. I've been making nachos every day for lunch, and they are so good. Mwah, mwah. Right? And so I've got my chips, I'm covering it with the cheese, but then I've got my beans, my edamame. Edamame is like my go-to. Trader Joe's has sometimes shelled and sometimes unshelled. I like it unshelled because that's easier for me to like dump into a salad or dump into like a bowl or to dump into my nachos. There's such a good source of fiber and protein. Big fan here. So essentially we really, really want to work on diets. Honestly, diet culture's role in these behaviors and start to change the narrative of the way that we are thinking, because the way that we are thinking, we are very likely showing it whether we know we are or not. And people are going to catch on, whether that is our friends and our family, whether that is our children, whether that is our future children, for me, for an example, and they're going to catch onto it, and we really truly become the people that we are around. So you actually get to decide what kind of role model you would like to be. And maybe you wished maybe you wished your mom or, your family members, your siblings had a different relationship with food because it wouldn't be impacting you now, right? And maybe this is your chance, and not maybe, but like it is your chance to be that role model and to make the change in the generations and generations and generations of diet behavior and toxic mentality. Like, we have to be the change. If we want a change to happen for the future generations, it's a ripple effect, and we get to start that, okay? So with all of this, I hope you enjoyed this episode. The next one is going to be really good. Let me actually pull up the title here so I can remember. I'm going to be talking about why I actually don't believe emotional eating is bad. I'm going to be talking about why I don't believe emotional eating is bad. I work with a lot of emotional eating and binge habits and things like that with my BPM clients. If you are interested in working with me as your coach and really healing from the inside out, making sure you're having a whole 180 from your mentality to your emotions around food, to your emotions around your body, and also the physical change, please send me a DM. You can also go down below. In the show notes, there's always going to be links for ways that I can support you, but my Instagram is down below, or you can just go directly to Instagram, and then it's CSCHMIDT.fit. That also brings you to my website, brings you to a lot of different things. My Pinterest, my TikTok, like all those good pieces there. But send me a DM on Instagram. I'd be happy to chat and see how I can support you in what capacity, whether it's you want BPM or it's something else. I'm happy to chat through what's best for you and what would be a good fit. So with all this, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, beautiful peach.